Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to People Talk. Look, it's a steamingly hot, lovely, warm Sunday afternoon here in London. So wherever you happen to be viewing us from, I hope the weather is working out for you too. It's been a very divisive week. Lots of bits and pieces have flown by. And as is now my new custom, I like to talk a little bit about some of the things that have taken place during the week. And I think for me, having just listened to Eddie Nestor, Curtis Walker, and Angie Lamar, one of the standout things of last week is the BBC's decision to use the N-word, as we are politely calling it. They decided to use the N-word in a broadcast, and they seem just very nonchalant about it. Even though I understand we've had 18,000 complaints as to, them using it and them claiming that, the family somehow gave them authority to do it. It boggles. And, one of the reasons why it boggles so much is because of other things that have happened quite recently as well. And one of the things, of course, everybody knows about is what happened to that guy Wiley, how he was really not just rebuked, rebuke would be a soft word, but really taken down. I think it's fair to say he'll be lucky if he works again because of the nature of the outrage that has poured out from the Jewish community. And look, I'm not one to tell the Jewish community or any community how to respond to what they consider to be smites against them. But what I have to say is the duplicity of how we are treated, how issues related to us are treated. We have a prime minister who has made an abundance of directly racist, prejudiced, and derogatory statements. And hey, the dude's the prime minister. Yeah. So the BBC have a long way to go before they can explain to me how they felt and why they felt that use of that word was justified, even so much that one of their announcers has decided that he can't work there anymore. Yeah. And, young man called Sideman, that's his name, he made that stance that he can't work there anymore because as far as he's concerned, he cannot be a part of an organization that can't understand the damage they do to us and the damage they do to the community when they use such a word just prime time. It wasn't hidden, it wasn't in a drama, it was in a report. And we have to start to think long and hard about why is it we are deemed as what I'm going to call easy targets, and why we seem to have no comeback when these things happened. So that was the week. It's been a strange week, and I think on my list of strange things, that is perhaps the most strange. However, that is not why we are gathered here today. We are gathered here today in front of the technology that us geeks have given you to do the third part in my series on relationships. We've been discussing relationships. First of all, we started with a couple, Wayne and Sophia Swaby, who talked to us about their relationships and their work with relationships. Then we moved on to Victor Granville. Victor gave us what I can just call a scintillating hour of wisdom, mic drops, you call it what you want to call it. But it was a wonderful show and everybody loved it so much. And at the end of the first show on relationships, I put a call out that I would like to have a discussion with women only about the state of relationships. And I'd also like eventually to have one with men only to talk about the state of the relationships. And I think one of the things I want to be very, very clear, I don't want to have this me single because of that. I don't even want to talk about who's single and who's not single. I have zero interest in that. My interest is trying to understand how we as a community can improve and foster relationships. I've said it before and I'll say it again. For me, relationships, man-woman relationships, are the cornerstone of a strong community. So I don't sit pretty and happy when I hear so many of our sisters saying, boy, I can't find a man. So many of our brothers, yes, women, saying, boy, I can't find a woman. the way my phone has rang over the last week from men and women, most of who refuse to come on the show, it's just been an eye opener. And I want to begin today by saying the problems are on both sides. So we're not here to bash anyone. We're not here to have the stereotypical conversation. I just want to hear from women, and what we're going to do today, what they think are the reasons why there are so many single women and even single men, you know? So we're happy to do that. And hopefully next week, we'll be able to flip the script and do it the other way around and ask men the same questions. If you are listening to this on Facebook and you would like to join, I'm doing something slightly different this week. So I'm happy to put the details into the chat. I trust that you guys will not share it to any Zoom hackers, and then you'll be able to join as well. You won't be able to speak, but you'll be able to contribute in the chat, as you can also contribute in the chat on Facebook. But that's enough of that. My two guests are here and they are waiting. They were early as usual. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And I will start with the person who joined first, and that's Janet. Unmute yourself, Janet. There you go.
Right, okay. Sorry, oh dear. Sorry, my phone was ringing at the same time. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Janet Wolfe. It's nice to be here with you this afternoon.
Is that the intro? That we need to know anything more?
Short and sweet. I don't know. What do you want to know about me? I don't know. I think the reason I'm here is because I work with singles in the church. I run a singles ministry, which I've been doing for the last 10 years. I don't know everything about singleness or relationships, but I've been invited, and so here I am.
Thank you very much. Okay, over to my second guest. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name's Vanessa, or Vanessa Kerry on Facebook, and I've worn a number of hats, but today I am going to talk a little bit about how to date on your own terms. That's why I think I'm here today. So not a relationship expert, but I'd say an expert on dating on your own terms to a degree, but we'll see.
Well, you're in good company. I'm certainly not a dating expert. You know, our failures are mounting up and they're becoming almost biblical in proportion. So we're all in good company. Look, you know, I ventured into this topic with a lot of trepidation because it is a sensitive area. It is an area where, you know, it's very easy to put your foot in it, especially if you're a big black man. Very easy to put your foot in it and find yourself on the end of a very severe and intense roasting. And I'm going to try and avoid that today by doing what I normally do, which is let my guests speak and keep my mouth shut. So I'm just going to go with some of the questions. And I think the first question I want to ask, and, you know, my guests would not be happy if I didn't open up with that. Why is it so hard for us to get together? What do you think is really makes it so hard for us as black men, black women to get together? Janet.
Oh my gosh, there's a question to start with, isn't it? What is it that makes us, I don't know, why would we, you see, for me, I don't have that issue myself. That's a really big question. I think it's something that people have got to be intentional about. You know, you've got to be somebody who understands about your culture, about your community, and you actually want to see progression. You've got to be sort of somebody who's seeking to achieve that aim. I don't actually have that issue myself, you know, so, I mean, I know it's happening in our community and I do see it. So I'm not really sure what the answer is to that question, to be quite honest.
Nessa, what do you think?
Yeah, I know why you're struggling, Janet, because I'm not convinced we are. Are we? Is there evidence that we're having a real challenge over and above any other community to get together?
Well, I don't know. The way I look at it, and the reason where the stem of the question is that there's always these, I don't know the validity, but there's always these statistics talking about how many single parents we have, how many Black women are single, how many Black men are single, how many Black men are dating outside of the race. And when I talk about us getting together, I'm cold. As far as I'm concerned, getting together for me means building the Black family. Yep. Anybody wants to log off now, that's cool. So I'm talking about, where are the Black families? Where are the Black relationships that develop into Black families? I could bring, if they were willing, 10 million women who would say, I can't find a man. And I could probably find 11 million men who would say, I can't find a woman. So is it empirical evidence? Maybe not. But certainly, anecdotal, that's what we're being told. So, am I hearing the wrong thing?
Well, I guess like we're being told that we struggle economically, that we're struggling across a number of key indicators, of which you just have to look a little bit beyond the statistics, I think, to see the reality of the story. I'm not saying there are no challenges, but I caution against concluding we as a people have a challenge in getting together. I think we're finding different ways to connect, like other communities. We're not, fitting the traditional stereotype, if you like, in terms of the age that we get married and, the format of our families. But across the board, marriage numbers are going down. Marriage success has always been challenging. Is it 51% of marriages fail? I mean, so, we just have to caution against what we're measuring ourselves by, I suppose, is what I would say.
So if we go back then, and I'm going to rephrase the question, because we're here to talk about relationships. So if I were to rephrase it and say, what are the challenges that we are experiencing in getting into stable, long-term relationships? And when I say we, I mean the global we.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, I think it's important to note that, the traditional nuclear family, or that, marriages, the numbers are going down across all communities. And so there are, shed loads of white men that are saying, don't see any value in marriage. I don't want to get married. And so I think that's happening in our community as well. I think there's something about us getting married a lot later. It is happening. Love is still happening. It's just happening in different forms and in different ways. I think, there's no point us pretending that there isn't a kind of a mismatch across some of the figures around incarceration rates, even educational attainment. There are some differences which has kind of produced that all-encompassing single Black female, educated, successful, but cannot find a man. And that message we've been hearing, I mean, I've been hearing it since the 90s. I started my dating against that backdrop, which is most of the men that you're attracted to are either going to be imprisoned, gay, or, something's wrong with them. And so, what a starting place, And as I've got older, I've started to see that I see streams of that, but I'm seeing Black women fall in love all the time. I'm not seeing very many single Black women sitting at home, waiting for, knight in shining armor. I'm seeing Black women building businesses, traveling across the globe, having different types of connections. And so I think we just need to move past the traditional stereotype about what's really happening. There are challenges, but I think they're much more complex than the typical message that we hear in mainstream media. That's my take on it.
Janet, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I suppose, yes, there was a few points made there that I think I would agree with. I think over the years, the world has changed as a place, and the way that people are viewed has changed as well. So a lot of women, for example, are not feeling as though they have to be married. They're going for careers maybe, and then leaving that till a little bit later. We're living in a time now where women, don't feel that they need to stay in relationships that are not right. So if they're in a marriage or they're in a relationship where, there's a lot of abuse going on, maybe there are other issues like, I don't know, gambling or drugs or, various things that go on within relationships. women know that this isn't a time now where you have to stay in that relationship where your partner or your husband isn't the sole breadwinner. You know, you haven't got to depend on somebody for your sort of daily needs. And so there's a lot of that as well, that a lot of women are choosing to not stay in relationships. Even people who are, you know, bringing up children alone, they know now that there's no stigma, that they can actually do that. So there's more choice, and sometimes that leads to singleness, prolonged singleness. I think a lot of women hope that they will meet somebody, you know, that perhaps they've come out of one relationship and they think, well, maybe I'll meet somebody else. And then there are other issues. I mean, that's really another story.
Agree with you.
I can see Vanessa nodding furiously at a lot of that. And what I'm going to do today, you know, because no one knows where I live, so they can't find me. I'm going to play devil's advocate. And I'm going to challenge some of the stuff that you just said, Janet. And by way of, you know, that I'm challenging Vanessa as well for all those nods. My question is this. I hear you and I accept that no one wants to be in a bad relationship. Yeah. What I'm trying to home in on here is no one wants to be with a gambler, an abuser, no one's. Have we become less tolerant of flaws?
Hello?
We can hear you, Alison. Give us a second.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Have we become less tolerant of flaws? Are we now at a situation where people are absolutely just, you know what? The first thing, we're out the door. Or the first thing, we're not getting involved. Yeah. Because I don't think there's anybody. And I know the older generation were slightly more tolerant. Well, I'd say a lot more tolerant of some of the things you mentioned. But have we moved to a point where we're almost intolerant of anything? Janet?
Well, do you know what? A lot of my views come from my faith and the way that I live. So, you know, there are people that may not agree with what I'm saying, or perhaps they will see it in a completely different way. But I think that the first thing that happens really, you know, one of the things that I advise people within my ministry work is that right from the get-go, right from the sort of decision to date, you need to understand why you're dating. And the dating is something that needs to be seen as an opportunity to collect data. So these are the kind of advice that I'm giving my singles, is that you're collecting data about the person. You're dating with an intention. You're dating with a purpose. You're not just going out with people as a pastime and something to do. And so the other thing that happens within that, you know, you're forming a friendship and you're accepting certain things about the person that you are meeting. You're accepting who they are, what they are. You're not trying to put expectations on people. I think that really in relation to what you just said, it's the expectations that we put on people that cause the disappointments. And we, you know, people really, I feel, need counsel in these things. Within the church, it is on offer, but I don't think in the wider society it always is there, unless you've got a really good friend or your parents are people who would have advised you in relationships. But it's like anything else. It doesn't just come naturally. And if you haven't been taught something, then the only place to find out how to do that is you see on TV, or, you know, you have a look at what other people are doing, which isn't always right. So, you know, as I said before, my perspective is coming from, you know, my faith and the way that I would teach somebody within the church about how to handle relationships. If you, for example, if you sort of put an expectation on somebody and you say, you know, I really like you, you know, or I love you, I really love you. This is something that a lot of people say. And the response to that, if someone says, I love you, you know, a lot of people would automatically just say it back. Either they feel it or they don't feel it. I would say, you know, why do you love me? Because quite often, the reason people love you or like you is for some sort of physical attribute. Not always, but a lot of people are very visual.
Doesn't that depend upon where you are though? And I don't want to stray from the question of this question of tolerance, because we've already got someone said that, you know, it's not a matter of tolerance, it's a matter of we have options now, and we have so many options. And I'm thinking, well, actually, I don't think I have lots of options. I'm either in a relationship or I'm not. That doesn't sound like lots of options to me, you know?
Yeah,
Paul, I think,
within a
Sorry,
within a relationship.
Vanessa. Let me hear
Oh,
what you've got to
sorry,
say.
yeah, go on.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of remembering some of the stuff that Victor talked about last week, you know, to answer the question. Yeah, so I just was looking at a comment, I'm going to respond to that. To answer the question, have we become less tolerant? Yes, and thank goodness for our well-being and mental sanity. Thank goodness we have chosen safety and mental safety as well as physical safety. So I don't want to position this as kind of, oh, you know, we've got lots of options, we've got lots of choices. You know, one of the comments in the chat room is about, you know, building careers as opposed to building families, and that there isn't an issue of women's biological clock just ticking away, and that we don't also want families, and that we don't also want love. We absolutely want love. We absolutely want those meaningful connections, but not at any cost.
I'm going to press you. I'm going to press you on this, Ms. Vanessa, and this is where I've been going with this conversation.
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah, what I'm about to say will murder some of my relatives, but I grew up in a home where my dad was an arsehole. Yeah, let's be straight. And in my view, my mom should have left him years before she did. So I get it. Yeah, I have no bones about saying that publicly, privately. I get it. However, some of the tolerance levels I'm feeling are just so low now. So I think the pendulum, I think what I'm trying to say is this. I think the pendulum has swung too far. So I would never sanction a woman living or staying with a man who was abusive, who was lazy, who was all of those things. But I think the pendulum has swung too far, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And I think one of the calls I had during this week, and this is not, by the way, again, not just about men or women. This is about men and women. One of the questions that came up to me this week was, why do we seem to have this list of perfection? And I think one of the things Victor talked about was about working on yourself first. So when we have this list, and me as a man saying, I want a girl who have long flowing hair, and she have this, and she have that, and she have all of this, what am I bringing to the table? And why is it that I can't get away with the girl who has everything except the long flowing hair? Our tolerance levels, and that's what I'm trying to home in on. I'm not in any way trying to suggest that it's okay to stick with some of these stuff that's there. No, but I'm saying I feel like our tolerance levels have crept to a point where we might as well just get a cat or get a dog, because, you know, that's what's going to work.
I mean, I think that one of the issues that we have as a society, not just in the Black community, is we are in a space where there is the appearance of lots of options, and we don't really have spaces where we can just experience each other without that kind of jaded cloud of romantic dating. And I think that also encourages that sense of, you know, the list and the low tolerance and the checkbox. If he hasn't got X, Y, Z, you know, I'll go online and I'll find somebody else who has. So I mean, that resonated with me, Paul. I know what you mean. I've heard that from men. I'm not sure I've heard it as much from women, if I'm honest, but that maybe we'll get into that a bit later in terms of why there may be more men that have a sense that the bar is too high. What are we talking about here? That would be an area I hope we venture into a little bit more, the detail around that. But I think we are living in a climate that makes romantic connections really tough, really challenging.
Janet, romantic connections are really tough.
finding those romantic connections. So, you know, we have different strategies. So for me, sorry, I don't want to hog the space. So please, somebody else jump in.
No, we got no clock, so we can keep going.
So one of the things that I try my hardest to do, and I don't mind sharing, I'm a single lady, but one of the things I try to do is kind of, you know, create spaces where we take away the kind of armor, and we try and move away from the kind of trying to show our best light, trying to pursue, trying to capture, and just be a little bit real, because only then can you see if you're compatible. And the longer you stay in that kind of false, you know, pursuing space, I believe, the harder it is. So that's what I mean about the climate, you know, not being conducive. You know, my girlfriend was talking about her mum or her auntie having, you know, Soup Saturday at her house, which was a time when, you know, people would just pass around. And that's how people met their husbands and wives, at her house on a Saturday, just really relaxed, really chilled. You know, those sorts of spaces seem to have disappeared. I mean, that's my take.
I see you nodding, Janet. You identify some of it.
I was just thinking how lovely, yeah. Wouldn't it be great to go back to the times when we were more community minded? But I think people are, I don't know, our lives have changed and we're just so busy, aren't we? We don't even have time for ourselves, really. So that was really why I was nodding. But I just wanted to, and I was trying to explain something earlier, and I don't think I managed to get it out what I was saying. And for me, it's just the way that the world's changed that is the problem. I think that we don't know how to have relationships anymore, and we're not really being counseled. We're not listening to what people are saying about, you know, well, if anyone is saying anything about these things. But what I was trying to say about not having expectations on people, I think most of us do. When we meet people, especially me as a woman, and a lot of other women, I'm sure, would say the same thing. We have this list of expectations. Many of us have worked really hard in our lives. Some of us have been to uni, or we've traveled the world, or whatever it is we've done, and we're proud of what we've achieved. And then quite often women say to me that they're meeting men who don't have what they have, or they haven't done what they've done. And I just think that the problem sometimes is that we have all these expectations, and which will lead to disappointments. And when somebody isn't the way that you expected them to be, as soon as you see those little cracks, then you start thinking, I need to find somebody else. I need to go somewhere else. I need to look elsewhere. And as you know, my sister said earlier, there are other choices. You know, not like in my mom's days, there wasn't any other choice. You're married for life, and that's it.
So you know what? I've heard this again, and again, I was talking to one of my friends, a guy this morning, who preempted the show and had a question. And I want to ask this question, and it sort of touches on what you were talking about, Janet. In your view, are you finding that men are being intimidated by that woman who she's invested in her self-development, she's invested in her education, she's, you know, moving along in her career, you know, she's doing stuff, she's open to relationships, she's not like as if she's not open, she's open to these relationships, she's moving along. Do you think men are intimidated by a woman like that?
Do you know, the answer is yes, I really do. I think it's sad that that is the case, but I think that women need to understand really that it's one of the legacies of racism that men aren't in the same position as a lot of Black women. You know, we're judging them quite harshly. It's much easier for a Black woman to get on in society and in life than it would be for a Black man. You know, we'll pick up employment easily, we'll get on courses, and we'll get ahead a lot easier. But it is a fact that when you do meet a lot of men, you just feel like you can't have the same conversation. You know, you haven't, for me, it's not about material things, it's about intellect. Personally, that's what attracts me to somebody. And if I can't have a conversation, even at that level, then I'm totally switched off. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what they've got. But I think, I don't know how to overcome that problem, but it is true that, you know, lots of women say that to me all the time, that, you know, men are intimidated. They have to dumb down who they are They can't say what they've done and what they've got.
Vanessa, you're laughing away. Go on, tell us.
Sorry, I thought somebody also commented about what we're talking about. So I guess I'm smiling because I do think that's a feature. I don't think it's all of it. I think there are lots of men who are fine, thank you very much, and actually they're just kind of put off by women rolling out their accolades and achievements and perhaps speaking to them as if they're a child. So I think, you know, there's a mixture of things going on. I don't think it's just about men not meeting our so-called standards. I think, you know, certainly one of the things I note being Black British, and I've dated in Caribbean, America and Africa, and you know, one of the things that we have here, or we don't have that class system, and so we don't have a really major Black elite in the UK. And so what I do hear a lot from my educated sisters in particular is they have to wade through things that perhaps another individual in the Black community in Africa, in the Caribbean, somebody of their level wouldn't have to deal with. And so, you know, that speaks to your point, Janet, about, you know, someone who's just on the same level, just the same page, someone who's, you know, capable of having some kind of intellectual conversation, but also in terms of how they approach you. That's the other element. It's not just about the intellect. You know, there's a difference between a guy, and this is a real life example that happened this week, like the last couple of weeks, a gentleman who I'd known 20 years ago, who's moved back in the area, who was seeing me in passing and has repeatedly asked me what number I live at. He knows what road I'm on. What number door do you live at? Of which I chuckled and I said, you know, I'm not going to tell you that. That's not how I operate. And every time he sees me, he asks me, what door do you live at? You know, that's the vibration. That's the level that he's coming in at, as opposed to somebody who could say, you know, look, I like you. Do you want to hang out? You want to go to the park? You want to picnic? Do you want to go to dinner? You know, so we as women are exposed to all caliber of man who feel comfortable because they knew you back in the day and that, you know, they used to hang out with you whenever, that they can come with you at that level. So that for me is what I hear a lot of amongst my girlfriends, my single girlfriends. Just so
hold on, the what door you live at, that's his chat up line? That's his chat up line.
These are his accolades. His accolades are, I can walk to your door. He even said his phone is broken. So I'll just pop in, just tell me what time and I'll just pop in. And he couldn't read from me looking at him like that just was never, ever going to happen. So yeah, again, I'm just speaking to the point of, you know, when I speak to my friends who are so-called Ghanaian elite, if you like, you know, they don't have that kind of exposure. They're not having to wade through just the nonsense in terms of approaches that come to them. And I'm sorry if that sounds snobby, I don't care.
So you see, I'm listening to what you ladies are saying. I'm reading some of the stuff in the feed as well. And that's on Facebook, sorry. On Facebook. I'm logged into Facebook as well. I have 6 screens in my study. Yeah, all right. Okay. All right. Yeah, substation in trouble. And I keep saying this, seeing this comment about, yes, I'm attracted to intelligence. Yes, it's about the approach.
I'm snobby. I don't care. So
hello?
Sorry, that was me trying to have a look at the feed as well. Apologies.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm hearing all these things, but I have to make this point. So, and I can only personalize it. I can only personalize it because I try not to speak outside of what I know and what I understand. I know a whole raft of intelligent, articulated, educated, stand-up guys who right now are holding their heads and saying, who are these men you're meeting?
I hear this too.
Because
I hear this too.
We've done the self-development, we've done the academics, we've navigated the racist system and are working, whether in our own companies. Very often we have to have our own companies because the system will hold us back anyway.
That's right.
And we have our own businesses. We've navigated, whether we're barristers, whether we're lawyers, whether we're accountants, whether we're engineers, whatever it is, we've navigated all of that.
So where are all these men then? And how do we find them? Like, where are they?
Well, I'm hoping some of them will turn up next week.
Well, yeah, this is what I said. I agree with you, Paul. I think they're there. I don't buy into that message that, they're all in prison and, or dating white women. I don't buy into that. I agree with you. But there is a challenge in connecting with them. And I think some of the challenge is space, actually finding them. Some of them is just, we are all, especially, I'm way over 30, in fact, over 40.
Why you laugh?
Well, because I didn't stop to overthought it, and I thought, let me not be a liar and just say I'm not just over 30, I'm over 40. And at this stage, to hold on to that kind of childlike energy, that optimism, it's a challenge. We're all so suspicious of each other, we of them and men of us, suspicious of us. There's also this kind of, dare I say it, there's a sense that, Black men are also, men full stop, are irritated and frustrated about, the expectations around them. There's just so many expectations that make us forget that actually romantic connections are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be enjoyable.
Yes, that's right.
So let me, there's something I have to get off my chest, and I have to ask this question. You've hinted on it a couple of times, Vanessa, and Janet's touched on it as well. And I think ultimately this may well be, and who knew that we were going to solve the relationship problems of an entire nation in less than an hour. And if we can answer this question, I reckon we can solve it. How do we meet each other? It's changed. Life has changed. I didn't grow up in this country, but I grew up in Jamaica, where you could actually turn on a bus and talk to a woman and she wouldn't look you up and down like you hadn't had a shower in years. Yeah, I used to live in a place called Spanish Town. And in the old days, you're taking a bus from Kingston to Spanish Town. So when you got to Duane Park, 6 Mile, for those who know, that was the last stop before a long stretch of motorway. Well, it was long in those days. We thought it was long. Before you got to Guinea's Corner in Central Village. And any man who got a seat beside a lady knew that that was his window of opportunity. Yeah, if she was still on the bus after 6 Mile, you knew she couldn't get off the bus again until Guinea's Corner. Yeah? That was your window of opportunity. So what you did in those next 20 minutes was you chatted her up, you got her office telephone number, because nobody never have home phone. Yeah. And if she didn't have a desk phone, you actually made a date.
Oh, the days, the good old days.
Here we are now. Everybody has a mobile phone. Everybody has email. Why can't we get together? Why aren't the guys I spoke about in the same space as the ladies you're speaking about? Where do we meet? How do we change this?
Well, do you know what? A lot of men that I speak to have said to me that they are, and they've admitted that they're really frightened of rejection, which I can kind of understand. There are lots of women who will, say things which are not that nice if somebody approaches them. I mean, it does happen. I've got to be honest. And so for some men, that will scar them, and it will be a long time before they approach a woman again after that. And we just have to be honest. There are lots of women that are not that nice when, if they don't like what they see, they'll just say it. But for me personally, I'm not somebody who is, personally, I'm not running around looking for men. That's just me. However, I am somebody who generally, I love people, I love meeting people, and I am passionate about networking. It's just something that I like to do. So I do advise people who come to me and say, how do I meet people? I just say, well, this is what I do. So when I go out, it's an intentional thing that I've made a decision about before I leave home. First of all, I'm going out to enjoy myself. I'm not coming back until I do. you know, there's people that go out and they've got, you know, their face looks as if they've got a bad smell under their nose or something, and they're wondering why somebody wouldn't approach them. You've got to have that attitude of, I'm going out to have a great time, you know, and somebody will read that. You will look as if you're approachable, you're smiling. You know, there's all those things that are going on. So I go out and I'm like that, and I'm ready to make friends. And I always say to myself, I need to come back with a few email addresses or a few phone numbers. I actually say that I tell myself that's what I'm going to do. So I have a strategy for building up my network. And I meet male and female, talk to people on the train, talk to people at the train station, in the shops, wherever, you know, I don't just go around talking to everybody, but where the opportunity presents itself, like you've just described about being on a bus, why not? Just have a chat, just start a conversation with somebody. You just don't know where it's going to lead to.
See, I've been in the UK long enough now for some of the nasty habits of the UK to start to rub off on me. And so, you know, when I think back to, and, you know, one of the guys, Mark Benjamin, who's obviously a Jamaican, he's on the chat, and he said, you know, she can't move, she's on the bus. The Jamaican bus park, there's nowhere she can move to.
Wow.
So that's it. But when I reflect on that anecdote, yeah, I try to transfer that to the UK. That shit would never work.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. That's right. Don't do that. I remember, you know, I was so naive when I just came to the UK. You know, I was sitting on a bus. I used to live in Norbury. I was sitting on a bus, saw this lovely woman. Yeah. Now that I've been here a few years, I realized that she was African, she was Nigerian, and she was absolutely gorgeous. And poor me, just off the plane, you know, think that my yard man charms were transferable. And I gave her my you really look nice, you know, look. And the lady said, well, look from afar. Well, you know, the Nigerian accent as it goes. And it didn't take long for me to suddenly realize that I was on foreign territory. And as the years went by, I sort of said to myself, I don't know how we even procreate in this country. Because it just seems that that boundary between Black men and Black women, I have felt that it's been very hostile. And you know, that doesn't mean we don't establish relationships, because that's rubbish. We do.
Yeah.
But I do find that initial kickoff, you know, I walk into a bar or a library and I see Janet, I see Vanessa, and I'm not sure, how do I walk up to them? Which, you know, if you're a woman and you've been to Jamaica, you know we have no problem. Even if your man walking with you, we will still say hello.
Yeah, that's right.
And tell you
amazing,
if you're not careful, they will take your woman off you. So let's not use Jamaica.
And mean it.
And mean it, and we'll do it. Can I, sorry, I hope I'm not interrupting you mid-sentence.
No, go on.
Because there's some really interesting comments on Facebook, and a few of them sort of talking about us going a bit deep, and I think, you know, I hope we will. We've got 15 minutes or so left. One of the comments was that, you know, we're not talking about what goes on in other communities, we're talking about us. And I guess, I mean, there isn't enough time to, you know, properly outline what I think are the differences. But I do want to say that one of the challenges that we do have is this, what I call all the reasons it's bad to be Black. And I think we have enough of that in the mainstream media. But I do want to say that one of the challenges. And so I do this a lot, and it's not to be dismissive. It's just to kind of note that actually the globe is having a community. I have been to workshops, one particular workshop, where in the UK, it was a freebie, and it was a few years ago, and there were barely any Black women there. There were white women there talking about exactly the same issues. White women talking about why men come to them just looking for sex or with such a low vibration, and why men don't court, and why men don't seem to be interested in relationships. And so, you know, I don't want to dismiss our unique challenges, but I just also want to make sure we don't fall into the common trap of saying, once again, here's another reason why it's bad to be Black. Some of these issues are universal.
True, very true.
And so, you know, the whole dating app thing, you know, there's been pluses and there's been negatives, but what we have to do is be positive about the idea that people are still falling in love, no matter what, with all the challenges, somehow, some way, people are finding a way to fall for each other. And I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna. I don't want to sound like I'm just, brushing over this with a positive spin. But for me, that keeps me going. That's what keeps me positive. And you cannot enter the dating ring unless you're positive. You're going to be eaten alive if you're not. In fact, even when you are positive, you're going to be eaten alive potentially by some.
I think that's a tremendously important point. I believe that the nature of your thinking when you enter into something has a strong determining factor on the outcomes. And I think that's a very important point. So if you believe all women are gold diggers, if you believe all women are this, if you believe all women are that, then you are going to get that. That's what you're going to find. And if she does anything that barely looks like it, you say, yes, I knew it all along. And,
right.
That, I suspect that that's very much a very good point of where we are collapsing. We have our baggage, we all have baggage. And we begin the day, we begin our interactions with that baggage. And sometimes it is that baggage that we're tripping over.
Exactly.
Rather than the person actually being lacking. And we don't give them a chance to really unveil themselves and show who they are and who they could be to us. I want to ask a question. So, is it okay for me to go on, I don't know, Tinder, I don't know what they're called, grind, I don't know, on these dating apps?
Not grind. That's the section one, unless you change.
I don't know. Look, I'm a total amateur. Is all of this internet stuff, is this the new way, or is this a way that we should be looking to embark? Are we resistant to reaching out to people on something like Facebook? Are we resistant to reaching out to social media contacts? Because look, we're not going to the shubbies anymore, especially on the lockdown. We're definitely not going into that sort of stuff. I hear brothers aren't turning up in church, which was a great place to meet people. In the supermarket, people look at you strange. Where should we be throwing that fishing rod? And yes, I'm not one of those people who doesn't think we should be actively seeking relationships. I think we should be. That's my stance. My stance is we should be actively seeking relationships. Just as I actively sought out my education, just as I actively sought out my personal development, I think I should actively, as a human being, should search out a strong forged relationship with another individual. That's the way I think.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
100% agree. Yeah. So if I don't mind quickly just responding to that, because there was something I want to say before that, somebody put a comment about, women in the menopause. And, when I speak to young women, that's exactly what I say to them. Make it a goal. Make it a goal to find a significant other, because I didn't. I just thought it would happen. And I think that, I remember speaking to a guy that I had a serious crush on when I was younger. And he told me that he had a serious crush on me, but I didn't look like I was interested. And I probably, was concentrating on, something, property, travel, career, education. And I think we need to make conscious efforts to not do that. So Janet, you talked about sort of just, you go to an event and you're not thinking about looking for a man. Why not? We should be going out and thinking about, one, having fun. You can't go out just searching for a man, but being intentional about connecting with people, wherever that is, on the bus, in the supermarket, working relationships. I'm not, I'm hearing this debate about, why are men approaching me on LinkedIn? I'd love men to approach me on LinkedIn. That's, they're professional.
Exactly.
What's wrong with men approaching you on LinkedIn? I don't get it. So
he's got a LinkedIn profile that's better than a Twitter.
You can find his employer if need be. I mean, I don't see the issue. So yeah, I do think we just need to be more open-minded about connecting with each other. And I'm not a fan of women pursuing men personally. That's me. Other women, absolutely fine for them if they feel comfortable with that. But I certainly think we can do a better job at at least being available and being approachable, and showing interest.
Janet, what do you think?
I agree with that. That they were the points I previously made, which is about the way that I live my life. I think we are relational beings. It's healthy to be in relationship with other people. We weren't created to be on our own and just live in isolation. And if you know anybody that's living like that, they're the ones that are walking around on the street talking to themselves. It's just not very healthy.
Yeah.
And so you do have to be intentional about it. I think you have to practice it. You know, some people are not very good at, you know, connecting with other people. I know you've talked about lots of things really about how people connect, and you know, how I think the approach that men make, something you were saying earlier about, you know, not knowing how to approach women. I just don't know why men find it so hard.
Well,
I really don't.
hold on. You say
just
that.
approaching a woman.
You say that, but there's lots of comments about it, about, you know, how men approach, and some people, for example, one of the persons said that some men want to come to your house the second time on the second date. Instantly, they think that that's it. And there's also this concept about approach, and sometimes the approaches are too sexual, you know. They think it's too sexual, it's too this. But also, you know, I again and again, everything I talk about when it comes is a bit tainted, because I didn't grow up here, so I don't have a lot of the sort of issues that some of my black brothers have. You know, I can remember talking to my male cousins way back in the day, you know, and, you know, one of the guys, Trevor's a lovely guy. Trevor loved his clubs, you know, dress up nice to go club and everything. And Trevor would say, Paul, you know, boy, a girl looked at me last night like I hadn't showered in years. And all I did was ask her for a dance. And so when I hear you saying, I don't know why men don't know how to approach women.
Just don't know.
I'm wondering if, and this is what I'm throwing out, maybe they've just been battered.
Yeah, I agree.
So just the way women are apprehensive because of their experiences. Could it be that the men's inability or unwillingness, rather, not inability, because we get around to it. It might take a while.
Yeah.
But
you find a way when it matters.
Say again?
You find a way when it matters. That's what I've learned.
Oh, but don't you think sometimes we're worn down and we think, do I want to do this again?
It's not anything to do with that, Paul. It can't be anything to do with that. Like, not all men have been, you can't say that it's because you've been battered. I think that, I don't know if it's just something to do with the way society is now, and that people don't know how to have a conversation because we're always got our heads in our phones texting people, or I don't know what it is, but it's just, you just approach somebody with a normal conversation. And I know this is a bit of a cliche, even if it's just, what, isn't it a nice day? You know, like, why can't people do that? What's wrong? What's so hard about that?
One of the things that Victor spoke about last week, one of the things that Victor mentioned last week, that there's always this thing about not wanting to be disappointed. And again, you know, he did talk about developing yourself and working on yourself so you get through that mindset. But I have to tell you that it really is very truthful. Guys they're not lying when they say to you, look, you know, the not just the level, it is the nature of some of the rejections that are meted out to them. And I'm not trying to paint guys as softy who are unable to step up, because, like I said before, clearly we do, as Vanessa said, you know, when we want to. But the approach is clearly a problem from both sides. Ladies are saying in the feed that the way men are approaching them is wrong. It's on, you know, Vanessa said wrong vibration. It's very sexual. It's very overt. It's very raw. And that's not fake. That's not favorable.
Sorry, Paul, I want to get another layer, because it's not, I don't only just get that actually, but you know, the other side of it is that particularly for those qualified candidates, and I'm going to say qualified for whatever that means to you. For me, that's, you know, a certain level of intelligence. Doesn't necessarily have to be educated, but just able to converse, got a critical mind, got some energy about them. There is the other side of it, which is kind of, here I am. They just kind of announce themselves like, here I am, come and get me. And I think maybe that's why I started the session today, by kind of moving away from this narrative that we're all sitting at home waiting to be chosen, and that there's this kind of huge amount of black women who are desperate for any form of male attention, because we see that, and we see men approaching us with exactly that energy, as if, you know, we were lucky to be chosen. So, yeah, I guess
Are you?
They're either coming off, you know, really just
are you
raw.
lucky to be chosen?
Hmm?
Are you lucky to be chosen?
Not really. Not if you're going to come with that energy. You know, if you're going to come with the energy that makes me feel like you're the prize, then maybe not. Like, how about two human beings just connecting? Like, how do we find that space where we're kind of not critiquing each other, and we're not throwing expectations, and we're not going to put ourselves in a position where we can be rejected and disappointed? You know, when we meet up with girlfriends, I don't sit in front of my girlfriends and think, oh, is she going to like me? You know, is she good enough? You know, I interact, I enjoy. And you know what, if the conversation isn't great, I may not see her again, but we don't sit in that space of kind of judging each other. And I think that's what would be great if we could achieve that in romantic connections.
A couple of quick questions. Does it matter if a man earns less than you?
No, not for me.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't need to go into that. I don't think that you know, it does matter really what, you know, that the man earns less than you. I think it matters to men more than it matters to us. And I think a lot of men think that, you know, that they already feel that they're not going to be good enough because you've just rolled out all your credentials and what you've done and everything. You know, just on a side note, I mean, I just read one of the comments that popped up a minute ago. Somebody wrote that on the Zoom right now that there are lots of men on it and they haven't got their photos up. Just things like that. I just wonder why that is.
I requested everybody not have their cameras on because.
Oh, did you? Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
that's right.
But
because,
that said, and I think Vanessa sort of touched on it before. I go to several events because of the other stuff that I do, the other work that I do, and I will go to an event and there will be 89% women.
Yeah.
And there'll be like 3 men. Yeah.
And the 3 men will have their cameras off. I've been to on a lot of forums all over.
But I'm not even talking about online. I'm talking about in person.
Oh, right.
So there's a certain type of event. So if you go to, I don't know, galas, fundraising dinners, that sort of stuff, it's always 5, 6 tables of 10 women. Yeah.
So is that because we're more sociable? Like, what is that about? Because it's a question that I'm always asked as well. You know, why is it that the men don't come out? They say they want to get married, they want to meet people, but they won't come out. Like, what is that? Maybe you could tell us, Paul. You're a man. What is that about?
When last I checked, I am indeed a man.
I must admit, I've got other challenges, but that's not one of my challenges.
What's one of your challenges?
I'm not about to share that today.
Okay, fine.
I'm just saying I'm not boasting, and I've got other challenges, but meeting people is not one of them. And I'd like to think that's because I do have the attitude of wherever I am. I'm not always in that space mentally, but if I'm in that space, it's just kind of connecting and talking to someone without expectations.
Ladies, we're on the hour, yeah? And I'm trying to discipline myself and maintain the hour slot. But I still have questions. Is it a bad thing that the first thing in a man's head is a very physical thing? Is that a bad thing?
I think that's natural, isn't it? I think it's natural.
It is what it is.
It's natural. Men are more we're visual, and we do care about how people look. I think men are more visual, and I think your first impression is really important. That's, you know, you see somebody before you talk to them, don't you? And that's one of the things that you touched on before. I was going to say that, you know, a lot of men, they approach women with this sexual thing, I think, based on the way you've presented yourself. So if you're wearing something that, you know, maybe is a bit exposing a bit too much, perhaps they think that that's what you want them to say, if you know what I mean.
I do indeed. I don't know why you're getting all shy with that comment, but...
No, I'm just...
Well, I mean, yesterday I walked past a lady and she literally was in her knickers and not the shorts, the knickers that you could see everything. Yeah. And so in that moment I did think, oh my gosh, what attention is she going to get? However, I'm going to wear what I want. Women are sexy. Get over it.
Yeah, they are. But I'm just saying that...
I will stand on behalf of men and say sex women are lovely.
They are.
But
we love you.
Pretend women are not, harassed, raped, or whatever. I don't want to blur the conversation, but it happens in countries where women cover up. So, the idea that somehow because you dress a certain way, that therefore means you're willing to entertain a certain energy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that those men who approach them in a certain way care what you want. They're entertained by you, by the way you look, and they want to let you know. So yeah, we can't go around hiding ourselves in fear that somebody might be attracted to us.
Okay. All right, ladies, we're more or less finished. So I'm going to wrap up with your final comments on the topic of today. I don't even know where to ask you to direct your comment. So whatever you want to say.
Yeah, well, all I'd like to say really to finish off is singleness is not a disease. Live your life to the full. We don't all have to be married. There's a lot to do while you're waiting. Just get out there and have a great life.
Yeah.
Vanessa?
Really,
100%. Yeah. I want to read a comment. May I read a comment as my final statement?
Oh, of course.
From somebody from the chat room. I love men. I have several boyfriends, and at age 50, the last thing I need in my life is a desperate situation, constantly looking for a man in all kinds of ways. If I meet a man and he's got the good sense to marry my fabulous ass, then I look forward to getting his credit card and giving up singledom. Until then, living my best life, career sorted, house owned, well traveled, all good for me.
I know exactly who that is.
So, I mean, I'm not saying I echo every single one of those sentiments.
No, I know exactly who that is.
I don't know if they want me to say their name, so...
No, it's all right. She doesn't care.
Well, Alexis...
You probably read it in the chat, Paul.
No. I know her.
Yeah, so she's put it in public, so I'm sure she doesn't mind me saying. But, not every aspect of that statement do I agree with. But, when I started, I was talking quite positively, and I said it already, I'm going to say it again. You cannot live your life in fear, and you have to have an abundance mindset to survive. And part of that includes being grateful for what you've got, and expecting good things.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's a great place for us to wrap up for this week. And as is customary of me to say that I continue to learn. And I think, some of the stuff that's come out from the show is about your attitude going into it. And I think that's the same for any sort of relationship. It's, what you put into it at the start, how you begin, what you're thinking about, what your processes are at the early days. A lot of what we've talked about, again, talks about self and about looking after yourself first and making sure that what you bring to the table is not just good, but it's confident. Yeah. And it offers someone all of the things that you say you're seeking and you're looking for. For me, it's been a hell of a learning curve here in these last 31 years because it's very, very different where I'm from. And I'm not necessarily saying it's different good. I'm just saying it's very different. Ladies and gentlemen, my thoughts have always been the same, and I don't think they're ever going to change. My thoughts are very simple. We need to develop our relationships. We need to develop very strong relationships. I am not one of those people who say, I'm happy being single or I'm happy being married. Or I'm saying we need to develop strong relationships so that we can start to address strong families. And from strong families, we then get strong communities. So this is not even too much about the romance. This is about community building. And I said it the last time, I'll say it again. Strong relationships are the cornerstone that our good community will be built on. Now, I am having a lot of trouble getting a group of men to come and discuss this next week. So I'm putting a shout out now to the uncles, the brothers, the cousins who are listening to this and would like to contribute. You've seen what the ladies have delivered here. This is not about why are you single. This is not about you're a waste man. We want to have a grown-up discussion about the relationship stuff that's impacting us as a people. And I'd like to have it from the male perspective. If none of you don't turn up, by Wednesday, I'll have to adjust the program. Yeah. I could talk for the hour by myself. Anybody who knows me knows I could do that, but I don't want to do that. Yeah. What I can also say is that I have recorded a fantastic interview with Miss Wendy Williams, who did the Windrush Lessons report. I have to thank Debbie Edwards, one of my regular listeners, for introducing me to Wendy. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made the contact. And I got to tell you, that is a fantastic interview that kills a lot of the myths, a lot of the lies. Let me not say myths, because that's wrong. A lot of the lies that centered around the Windrush scandal and about what they could have done and what they could not have done. So that interview is about to come out very soon. I'll do it the way I did the Angela Lamar one, where I'll premiere it and you guys can watch it at will, because it's pre-recorded. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week. I want to thank Janet and Vanessa. I know Alison was trying to join, but because her social life is so full, she had to be doing it on the phone, and the phone was giving us road noise, which is why we couldn't involve her. But as I can see from the feed, her topics and her comments are there in large color. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for your time. We return to relationships next week, when we'll be talking to men about relationships. And you have a great, great Sunday. Thank you.